In a shocking escalation with potentially far-reaching consequences, reports emerging this morning claim that Israel has carried out an airstrike on the Qatari capital, Doha, targeting senior Hamas leaders allegedly sheltering there. If confirmed, this would mark an unprecedented development in Middle Eastern geopolitics, expanding the conflict beyond its traditional battlegrounds and raising urgent questions about sovereignty, regional stability, and the risk of a broader war. According to preliminary reports, the strike occurred in the early hours of the morning, with explosions heard in parts of Doha. Eyewitnesses described loud blasts followed by plumes of smoke rising near residential and diplomatic districts. Qatari emergency services were seen rushing toward the affected areas, though official casualty figures remain unverified at this stage. Sources suggest that the targets of the strike were senior Hamas figures who, according to Israeli intelligence, had been operating from within Qatari territory. Israel has long accused Qatar of providing political and financial support to Hamas, a charge that Doha has repeatedly denied, insisting that its engagement with the group is limited to humanitarian mediation and peace facilitation. If accurate, the attack would represent Israel's boldest and riskiest operation in recent years. Striking in the heart of Qatar, a Gulf state with close ties to the United States, Turkey, and Iran, carries massive diplomatic and military implications. Qatar hosts the largest American military base in the Middle East, Al Udeid Air Base, and has traditionally positioned itself as a mediator in regional conflicts. An Israeli strike on its soil could therefore destabilize delicate alliances and trigger an international crisis. Initial statements from Qatari officials have condemned the reported attack, labeling it a blatant violation of national sovereignty and international law. Doha has called for an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council, urging the global community to take immediate action against what it described as unprovoked aggression. Hamas, for its part, has vowed retaliation, describing the strike as a cowardly attempt to silence its leadership. In a statement released shortly after the incident, Hamas officials warned that Israel had crossed a red line and would face consequences for extending the battlefield to new territories. Meanwhile, Israeli sources have yet to issue an official statement confirming or denying the operation. Analysts believe Israel may frame the action as part of its ongoing campaign to eliminate Hamas leadership following recent escalations in Gaza and elsewhere. For Israel, targeting Hamas leaders abroad represents a strategy of deterrence, designed to show that no sanctuary is beyond its reach. The international reaction has been swift and alarmed. Turkey, a close ally of Qatar, condemned the strike as an attack not only on Doha but also on the principles of sovereignty and diplomacy. Iran, too, criticized Israel's actions, framing the incident as proof of Tel Aviv's disregard for international law. Western governments, including the United States and European Union, have expressed concern and called for restraint, emphasizing the need to avoid further destabilization of the Gulf region. Security experts warn that this incident, if verified, could open a dangerous new chapter in Middle Eastern conflict. Traditionally, Israel's military operations have been concentrated in Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria. By expanding the battlefield into Qatar, a nation with global diplomatic weight and strong alliances, Israel risks drawing new actors directly into the confrontation. This could escalate into a wider conflict involving Gulf states, Iran, and even Western powers. Beyond the immediate political ramifications, the strike raises questions about the vulnerability of Gulf capitals. Qatar has invested heavily in security, particularly with the presence of American forces, yet the reported airstrike highlights the limitations of even the most fortified defenses when facing advanced military capabilities. Economically, the incident could rattle global energy markets. Qatar is one of the world's leading exporters of liquefied natural gas, LNG, and any instability in its capital is likely to raise concerns among international investors and trading partners. Already, early signs indicate that oil and gas prices may react to fears of a wider Gulf confrontation. Within Israel, the decision to allegedly target Hamas leaders in Doha may bolster the government's domestic standing, especially among hardline supporters who have been calling for tougher measures against Hamas. However, it also risks international backlash that could isolate Israel diplomatically, particularly if civilian casualties are confirmed in Doha. In Qatar, the population has reacted with shock and anger. Citizens took to social media to denounce the attack, with many calling for solidarity across the Arab and Muslim world. Regional hashtags condemning Israel's actions began trending within hours, reflecting widespread outrage and calls for accountability. The United Nations is expected to convene an emergency session to discuss the matter. Diplomats acknowledge that the incident could represent a tipping point, potentially dragging the Gulf into direct confrontation. Calls for de-escalation are growing louder, but the path forward remains uncertain, especially with Hamas promising retaliation and Israel likely to defend its right to target what it views as terrorist operatives. Military analysts note that Israel has a long history of conducting targeted strikes against Hamas and Hezbollah leaders, often in Gaza, Lebanon, or Syria. However, extending such operations into Qatar would represent a dramatic expansion of its operational theater. The decision underscores Israel's determination to dismantle Hamas leadership structures, but it also risks provoking a backlash far greater than any it has faced in recent years. As the world waits for further details, the situation remains fluid. The Qatari government is reportedly coordinating with allies, including the United States, to assess the damage and formulate a response. Meanwhile, Hamas supporters have already staged demonstrations in parts of the Middle East, vowing revenge and calling on Arab states to stand united against Israel. For Washington, the incident presents a delicate balancing act. Qatar is a critical ally hosting thousands of American troops, while Israel remains one of the United States' closest partners in the region. Navigating this crisis without alienating either side will prove a significant diplomatic challenge for the Biden administration. In conclusion, the reported Israeli airstrike on Doha, Qatar, targeting Hamas leaders, represents a potential turning point in the conflict. Whether this act will deter Hamas or inflame the situation further remains to be seen. What is clear, however, is that the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East has been shaken to its core, with new risks emerging that could reshape the region's future. As more information emerges in the coming hours and days, the world will be watching closely to see how Qatar, Israel, Hamas, and the international community respond to this unprecedented escalation.